Alright guys, HyDra again. I hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. The COD community was in uproar last night as ZooMaa and ImperialHal went at it, but that was not the only drama of the evening. Atlanta FaZe officially confirming aBeZy is gone from the team after weeks of speculation whether he would leave, whether the Tiny Terrors would actually break apart. That is exactly what has happened last night. What next for those two respective teams, as in FaZe, and where aBeZy might well go next? Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. We're going to get straight into it because FaZe confirm officially yesterday they sit down and aBeZy goes, well, a message from aBeZy, and he talks about being on FaZe and now parting ways with FaZe. It's obviously been a tricky season for FaZe. They started the year so strongly, winning back-to-back events, and there was an expectation that, look, these guys are going to stick it out again. They've dominated the CDL for the last several years, as in, well, they've not dominated it in terms of event victories, but they've been #1 in the standings every single year. This year was the first time that did not happen. And we'll just quickly pause it in a second here, because people were looking at this. I'm actually looking at this moment specifically right here, because obviously they're doing this overlay thing, and you can see that HyDra comes up on the screen as they're doing this little overlay of some of the other players that they played against. And it just caused a little bit of discussion because we think that HyDra might be aBeZy's next teammate on the Los Angeles Thieves. Whether there was anything to do with that in FaZe's messaging here, that's another question. But look, he's been on FaZe an awful long time, joined at the start of the CDL era, and has been there with Simp and Cellium that entire time period. The trio is officially breaking up. Cell's not been confirmed to Falcons yet, but we know that that's happening. He's also a free agent, Cellium, anyway, like an unrestricted free agent, so he could just walk away. Whereas for FaZe, we think that they required a buyout effectively to make this happen. But it felt for some time that maybe aBeZy and Simp would always play together since they started teaming together on eUnited back in Black Ops 4 and have been together ever since. It's remarkable how long that duo have been together because, look, Scump and Formal, Scump and Crimsix, these guys that played together on the same team for several years, not even really close to the number of days that aBeZy and Simp have teamed together, the longest teaming duo in the history of COD, and actually, remarkably enough, some of the oldest players in the league at this point, which is kind of wild to think about. Not like they're old, but you know what I'm saying, they're certainly on the upper end now because they've just been around so long. Simp says so long, partner. It's one of those days that you kind of never thought would really arrive, where the Tiny Terrors, or just the trio maybe, because a lot of you guys who have been around just in the CDL era will kind of know it more than Simp and aBeZy, but also with Cellium in the conversation as well, and for good reason. But that's now changing, right? So Simp says so long, partner. This got about 10,000 likes. It's, yeah, big day for FaZe, big day for Simp and for aBeZy, and it's going to be great to see their rivalry, I guess, right? Because it will become that to some degree. I'm sure there's going to always be a huge amount of respect between these two, but there will be a great rivalry because, look, if you're a competitive animal, which Simp and aBeZy certainly are, they will want to prove that they're better than the other guy. It's just naturally how it is. There's been loads of questions in the COD scene over the last several years. Who's the better player? Is it Simp? Is it aBeZy? I would say it's Simp. I think most people would agree. The majority of years, I think that has been true. But there have been some games where aBeZy's either been on par, if not better. There's still discussion about that Cold War season. Who was actually the better player? Was it Simp? Was it aBeZy? But also, who's the more impactful player? They play in different ways. aBeZy's the first man in, the first Blood King in Search and Destroy. You know, there's obviously two sides of the same coin in terms of how impactful that duo has been, and now they're no longer a duo. How well would aBeZy work with another SMG? How well would Simp work with another SMG? It's a good question. Some would say that, well, Simp gets enabled by aBeZy. Simp and 04, is that going to work in the same way? aBeZy and another SMG, is that going to work in the same way? We thought that it might be with Pred over at Falcons. That was a rumour for some time. Now we think it's going to be with HyDra, and, well, it's kind of hard to look past aBeZy and HyDra being a rather damn good duo. Now, Breaker Boys say in the Generational Haters Club, aBeZy on FaZe 2,128 days. TJ's last win, 2,449 days ago, way back in that Black Ops 4 season. aBeZy's parted ways with FaZe after almost 6 years with the franchise, so kind of remarkable. But as we know, this more than likely means that in the relatively near future, Thieves may confirm what they're looking to do. We're pretty sure that aBeZy is going to go over there for the upcoming season. And is that team going to be better than Simp's team they're keeping over at FaZe with, we think, well, Drazah may stay, Abuzah and 04 potentially coming in. aBeZy, we think, is going to team with HyDra, with Scrap, and potentially with Kenny as well. So it's going to be a fascinating rivalry, the the upcoming season. Of course, you could also throw Cellium into the mix there as well in that rivalry, but, you know, and it will be a rivalry, but obviously Falcons, the team that they've put together, if it is going to be Pred, Xnid, Cellium and Kismet, is that going to be on the same level as the others? I guess time will tell. Now let's talk about the other drama, because of course ZooMaa, FaZe, maybe it was frustrating for FaZe, maybe losing aBeZy and whatever. We know that Ksan and others have been kind of, pretty sad about the fact that that time has come to a close. It's inevitable, right? There is a concept of entropy, and over time, it's the second law of thermodynamics, whatever. FaZe have succumbed to it. Ben J got his way. But ZooMaa the other day, when responding to this kind of Shroud discussion, said the COD players are better at adapting to other games than other game players are adapting to COD. And I think there is some logic in this. Every year, I mean, if you look at the COD that we played today, compared to the COD that was like, let's say, Advanced Warfare or something, it almost looks at times, looking back at those older CODs, like an entirely different franchise to what some of these developers have cooked up over the last few years. Now, it's still the same thing, and it's obviously on controller, and picking up keyboard and mouse maybe is easier than going the other way around, possibly, but ZooMaa says that because COD pros are so adaptable, they are better attuned to going to other esports and making that work, and maybe we've seen that. I mean, even in the CS example, a guy like Nifty, for example, if you guys remember that name from Black Ops 2, he went and played Counter-Strike at a pretty high level, and there's some decent other examples as well. Aches has his opinion and says this is actually super simple. COD pros can and do transition much better to mouse and keyboard games than mouse and keyboard pros transfer to controller. That's Aches' opinion, but not everyone agrees, because ImperialHal, if you guys are unaware of this guy, is I think like the biggest creator, most popular kind of player, like creator slash player, and has had a lot of success as well in the Apex Legends side. Now Apex is a battle royale esport. There is always an element of RNG involved, but it's a big esport, right? They got a lot of money on the line over there, and their community has been growing pretty well over the last few years. So ImperialHal says, dude is retired and has nothing else to do but yap nonsense, my god. Now, ZooMaa didn't take particularly kindly to this and said, this guy plays Apex, the most RNG esport of all time. JoeDeceives in the replies, but he sits behind a rock for 20 minutes and calls it a competitive esport. ZooMaa found that rather funny. So, obviously ImperialHal decided that he was going to fire back in the replies. So, ImperialHal says, dude played a non-RNG esport for years and only earned 400k. Stay behind the mic, buddy. So, look, at the end of the day, in ZooMaa's era, making 400k playing COD, and that's pure earnings, right? That's tournament prize winnings. That's not salary and stuff on top of that. It's pretty damn good going, right? Like, there's obviously been not just inflation in normal terms, but also just prize winnings inflation in general, because the CDL came along, the VCs were pumping a load of money. You guys know how it is. You know, when ZooMaa started competing, Ghost Advanced Warfare, the prize pools and the salaries were not what they are today, just in esports in general, right? And obviously Apex wasn't around in 2014, 2015. So that's one of the reasons why. So I think this argument from Hal was a bit unfair, but I think at the end of the day, they were just trying to stir the pot a little bit here. And I'm not sure if Hal realised that ZooMaa was kind of being a bit serious about this, because, things did get pretty dramatic. And maybe at the end of the day, it's all in jest, but it was still pretty spicy at the end of the day. So ZooMaa then says I'm a multi-millionaire. Hal says me too, and then he goes, let's go band for band. So I'll see if that goes anywhere. I think Hal was in the reply segment will do it. But as you can see with these tweets, the whole COD community was on the bandwagon here, right? Because the FaZe fans and then the OpTic fans were coming together in this beautiful moment for the scene, and we'll see why here in a second. But in the replies, Nero's here, Bant, Joey Nubsy, Hal says I'm down, and basically the whole COD community was in the replies. Then Ksan got involved and says, yo fam, for one, 400k then was a lot. He was a great respected player. They didn't have prize pools as big as now. Secondly, relax homie, he gave his opinion on Apex versus COD and didn't go at you personally. Grow up and calm your ego, which I think is probably fair. And then Hal says, dude has no idea what he's talking about regarding Apex, so don't give an opinion in the first place. Don't need to defend your friend when he's in the wrong. If he's just messing around, then I'm sorry then. So I'm not going to respond to this personally. I'll let ZooMaa respond to this because I thought he had a pretty good response for it. And as I say, before we get to those clips, everyone was getting involved. Octane was in the replies, Scump was in the replies, like the whole COD scene pretty much was here watching along for the ride. And the other very interesting clip that was re-emerging, this is not Shotzzy of today, this is a pretty old moment here when they were playing a bit of Apex, but this clip was emerging too. Now I'm not familiar with Apex and all the features and everything, but basically Shotzzy was using like a macro on his controller to do something which you can typically only do on mouse and keyboard. At the time this clip came out, I believe that was frowned upon, but it wasn't necessarily like illegal or anything, so I think now they might have banned it. Anyway, Hal was calling him out for cheating basically, and Shotzzy was like, well, I didn't really see it like that, and as a result the OpTic fans were going hard, as were the FaZe fans last night.
I would actually argue that Call of Duty pros can compete more playing other people's games like Apex, Counter-Strike, whatever, than all those guys can coming over to COD at a pro level. I could actually argue that. I feel like I could argue that because COD pros every year have to adapt to a new game and learn new maps, learn new mechanics, they're constantly having to evolve and learn new things every year, where every other game just stays the same. Every other year, every other game, chat, just stays the same year after year after year after year. Now, that's a whole different argument. That's a whole different comparison, whatever. Like, we could talk about that. That has nothing to do with this clip. Let's focus mainly on this clip here. Really funny. I thought this was hilarious. All right, this right here. Dude has no idea what he's talking about regarding Apex, so don't give an opinion in the first place. Don't need to defend your friend when he's in the wrong. If he's just fucking around, I'm sorry then. Okay? Isn't it funny how everybody else has an opinion about COD? Isn't it funny how every other person, bro, the last 2 days, everybody has an opinion about COD and Call of Duty and loves to jump on the COD hate train, but the minute a COD guy gives his opinion about other games and is completely honest about my thoughts and my opinions, it's a problem. It's a problem. That makes no sense. Then this guy brought up money. Then he said, dude played a non-RNG esport for years and only earned $400K. Brother, Call of Duty player salaries are more than your prize pool, buddy. Pipe down. Okay, brother? Call of Duty player salaries are more than your prize earn. ImperialHal accuses Shotzzy of cheating in Apex. Yo, let's watch this clip one more time. Gotta watch it at least one more time.
Evan, are you shooting the same guy as me, or what?
Bro, he tactic on me, bro.
But I just realized that motherfucker just... The man's already cheating. The guy swaps from COD to Apex and the guy's tap strafing on fucking controller.
Is that actually tap strafe?
Yes!
3 times right there.
The guy's fucking using the Steam config, you little bitch.
No.
You know what was this Horizon movement?
No, that was definitely a fucking tap strafe.
Hold on. Why is it so much... Why is it so hard for other people that play other games to just... Why is it so hard for them to grasp that Call of Duty... Bro, the top players, the top talent in Call of Duty can 1,000,000% go and play other games. It's actually hilarious.
Some pretty good drama, always keeping the COD scene interesting for sure. ZooMaa, I thought his response was pretty reasonable, right? Because at the end of the day, ZooMaa started out not even talking about Hal especially. He was just saying, look, COD pros are in a better spot than pros of other games, and then Hal fires back and he's like, well, hang on a second, a COD player's not allowed to have opinions in other games, does it only work the other way around? Anyway, Ziddy said, pretty funny, Team Hal, dinner on me, whatever. So they did have another back and forth here, right? There were more tweets flying around. Hal says, I'm down, just don't stick your nose in my food. So, you know, they couldn't help themselves last night, and even Dashy was in the replies as well. So yeah, very much enjoyed your thoughts on all that in the comments below. FaZe getting into some controversy last night, and maybe it's going to continue as well, but aBeZy, probably from a competitive COD perspective, the biggest story of the day. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.
No, I think Sweet has more money than Scump. I'm not kidding. I'm pretty sure Sweet has more money than Scump. No, I'm pretty confident in that.
Two teams here, one team building. I don't care about